Hey friends out there, Rob here. Today I want to bring you another video specifically talking about audio for video, that white noise, that hiss, that sound, that snow you hear sometimes when you're setting up your audio interface. Today we're going to be talking about that specific to the Panasonic X1500 or X1600, but it really applies to any device. YOLO box, Tascam Model 12, HM Mini Pro, audio interface for your computer, any device that you're using to record, a Zoom field recorder, whatever. See, there are many different stages of gain. There's many different things you need to know, and I'm going to share that with you today. This is specifically in response to a comment that I got over 15 times on my videos. If you comment on my video and you don't see it pop up immediately, it's because comments have to be approved. I don't let everyone comment for this exact reason right here. Some bozo decided to comment 15 times at original OBUV on my YouTube channel on the Panasonic X1600 video, on all of them, but specifically this one that we're looking at right here. Does it overheat after a long period of time? Spoiler alert, it doesn't. He says, what about the, three oh my gods, like, oh my God. What about the white noise issue when connected to an external microphone via the 3.5mm headphone jack? I know this problem exists on the 2024 and 2020 Panasonic lineups. I bought a 2025 X1600, the upgrade to this one, the version 2 of the 1500, and then returned it because of the white noise issue. Is this a global problem? Why is everyone silent? No, he's an idiot. He's an idiot, and I told him as much. He's an idiot because he didn't take time to look up the issue, figure out how to set the gain, has no idea, and I asked him as much in the comments. We'll see if he responds. If you see his comment down below, that means that he hasn't deleted his. I hope he doesn't delete it so that he can sit there and entertain many people. The reality is he doesn't know how to use his gear. He doesn't realize that there are two different types of line inputs, that you have the ability to set a -4 or a 0 decibel input for line. What about for microphone level? You can go all the way from -60 to -40 decibels of input, all in the audio menu. He doesn't understand the things that make microphones different. Specifically, each microphone has its own self noise that it will generate. He doesn't recognize that when you turn the gain on the microphone up so that you can hear that pin drop across the room. You remember what MCI, Sprint, or MCI, like a pin drop. No, you don't want to hear a pin drop across the room from your microphone. It means your gain is set too high. It means it's going to pick up everything. We're going to talk about those things in this video, but when people make foolish comments and stuff like that, especially 15 times to me, I kind of like to rag on them here. So enjoy it with me, learn from his idiocy. Let's talk about the stuff that we've got right now. Did you know there are different types of microphones? Most microphones you're familiar with are some form of condenser microphone. They require power. They can be itty bitty because they have power, they draw power, they use power, but they can be bigger too. Two very common types of microphones are condenser microphones like this shotgun microphone, which usually goes here. But the internal microphones are also powered microphones. It's just internally powered. You don't have to plug anything in. They're linear PCM microphones. And then we've got dynamic microphones. These don't generally require power. In fact, dynamic microphones never do. They have larger microphone capsules, and they're better at rejecting room noise. They're better at handling gain. They're usually better at handling loud inputs that go from dynamic range, like soft to loud. They can handle that stuff pretty well. And they're generally, they're vocal microphones. Although condensers can be vocal microphones as well. You can use these type of microphones however you like. But condensers are powered, they require power, they draw their power to do their job from a voltage supplied through the XLR cable or through a battery pack or something, okay? Most of the time when you see a microphone, like a little mic like this one right here that you see, it's up here somewhere, that microphone is a condenser microphone. It's drawing power from the battery pack inside, and that allows them to be itty bitty tiny and be able to pick up noises all over the place. Let's not forget how microphones work. They work because no matter the size, there is a diaphragm. When I say diaphragm, I literally mean a piece of material, a foil type of material. It's very flat. It's stretched over an object with coils around it. And when it picks up sound waves, like those of your voice moving, right, it vibrates. That vibration causes a current change in the induction of the coil around it, and it sends that current change. You can see the little copper coils right there down to the connection, and then that connection goes out either to a preamp directly on the board, like in a XLR dynamic microphone. These have to be boosted with gain preamp, or if they happen to be a wireless mic or have a power source to them, it just automatically boosts them already, so the signal is up to the right level. Microphone level signals are much softer, quieter signals than line level signals and require more boosting, right? Now, when you get into boosting signals, you can get into gain and things along those lines like we would see here, right? Like when we look over here, nothing is connected up top right now. But when we look right here, we can see that we can adjust on these little knobs. Those knobs are equivalent to our gain sliders on something like a Tascam Portacapture X8. Well, I guess it's got a screen, you wouldn't see it. Or the faders, or the gain knob, actually the gain knob on a board, like a soundboard. Okay, why does all this matter? Let's look and see what you're looking at here. We're on, characters are turned on so that you can see this. I'm going to try to give you everything that you need to see right here. The crux of the comment that I got had to do with where the actual audio would make noise when plugged into the mic input right here. This is ridiculous. It's not that the mic couldn't make noise, but the statement that the man was making, or the commenter was making, is ridiculous because he doesn't understand. When you plug this in, whatever's getting plugged into here, if it's a Rode microphone like the Rode Wireless Go or the DJI mic or the Shure wireless mic, whatever gets plugged into here is going to have some kind of gain already applied to it. The level of the signal is going to be coming in high or low. You don't know, I don't know. We don't know because it's not plugged in yet. What that means is that the signal is already being boosted by something. So let's talk about our signal path for just 1 second. The pie hole, or the thing that creates the noise, is the source. The thing that initially collects the noise is the microphone, right? Then that microphone sends it somewhere. In this instance, if you plug a battery pack, or if you plug an external wireless microphone into this, like one for here, then the source is my mouth, the wireless microphone is the collection, but it's wireless, so it then sends it to a receiver, which gets plugged in here, so the receiver has an amount of boosting it's going to do, and then once it gets plugged in here, the camera has an amount of gain boost that it may or may not do as well. Do you see, as we go through several steps, we can begin, let's turn that off, we don't want to record, we can begin to collect and change the sound by default because each step in the signal chain has been set to a different level. So the first thing that we want to do when we're setting good level to not hear hiss is make sure that on the collection, the first device that collects it, we're at a good signal strength. What's a good signal strength? Generally speaking, the collection for the microphone should be minus 12 decibels peaking to minus 8 decibels low, and somewhere in between that range. So if you're between minus 18 and minus 12 decibels, you're good. That is room enough for somebody to scream or a bride to be happy or someone to clap, okay? If you're at minus 12 to minus 6, you're really riding the edge a little bit more than you need to, okay? And if you overmodulate with digital signals, like we're doing digital collection here, then you get terrible noise in your ear. It sounds bad. It's called distortion. Now, when analog signals clip and distort, it can sound great. There's vocal drive microphones for singers that give their voice that raspy vocal kind of sound. It sounds nice. For guitars, there's amplifiers that do that. But for the spoken voice, it sounds horrible. Okay, so good rule of practice, if you don't know any better yet, until you find better, try for a sound collection between minus 18 and minus 12 decibels. Where is that? Well, on here, this is minus 12 decibels. Okay? I know that because I checked my instrumentation. So I know where minus 12 decibels is. That means that this is minus 12 decibels, then that this is 0 decibels, right? Each one of these little tick marks is 2 decibels. That's important. That's the device telling you exactly what your sound levels are reading. Now, currently, this is picking up no sound. Let's go ahead and tell it to pick up some sound. Now, it should be picking up sound. And you see, there are some very small changes. In fact, I recognize that there might be something in the way. Oh well, I'm sorry. And it's hard to see. One microphone is actually picking up right at minus 10 decibels, while the other one is over here at right at minus 16 decibels. That's great. If you look right here, you'll see they're actually set differently. So I can peak both of these, right? Oh, look at that. There, wow, it's going real red. And you even hear the TV sending through now. Well, we don't want to do that, okay? So that's the next step where we would set our gain. So if we were simply using these to record, let's go ahead and put this TV on mute. If we were going to record with the internal microphones, then we'd actually kind of already have them set to pretty much where we want. These two mics, one is picking up and peaking at minus 16 or minus 12 decibels. The other one is picking up at minus 16. They're both capturing in stereo. This basically is then capturing two tracks, one at 6 decibels higher than the other, which would give me a safety track. So I've got great audio setup here. If I was trying to go out for live stream directly from this device using YOLObox, I would actually set both of these at the same level. If I set them both at the same level, then we would look more like this on the meters. Now they're both set at basically the same level, and that's a good thing. If I was going to YOLObox, YOLObox would be the next step in the chain, right? So I would need to send YOLObox a good signal. So the idea would be the collection at the source from the first would be set to minus 12 decibels to minus 18 decibels. That would be the range. We would make sure that the range was then being seen on the camcorder if we were going through the camcorder, and in this case we are. You don't have to go through the camcorder, you could go through another device, but whatever device you're going through, in like a field recorder or a mixer, in this case we're going through the camcorder, so we want the camcorder to be displaying the same audio levels that we have, and then send that signal out to YOLObox. And if we had YOLObox hooked up, which I don't, if we had YOLObox hooked up, we would then set the gain, the sliders on YOLObox, to also be at minus 18, minus 16 to minus 12 decibels. Then every step in our signal chain would be set to the same level, which would mean we'd have good sound. Now, that's the first thing. That was audio gain. Set your gain stage throughout each level so that you've got the same signal coming through. You don't want one level in the chain to boost or turn down your signal, boost or cut it. You want it to all be the same. Let's say you were using a mixer. When most people, a mixing board, like a soundboard, when most people think of sound, those long strips called faders where people move up and down, they think that that's where you set your gain. That's not where you set your gain. Where you set your gain are on the knobs, just like we did here, that turn the sensitivity up and down. You then create your mix using those faders. You do this so that you don't change the clipping level and the sensitivity of your mic throughout your recording process. So once everything is set to the same gain, you can then boost or cut the signal without clipping by using the faders. Okay, we're not using a fader here, but YOLObox has faders. That left and right horizontal strip in the audio panel is your fader. So you would either boost or cut your fader. And they've done a great job of showing you the attenuation in decibels, as well as giving you a long throw. Those are things that you want. Okay, assuming that you've done all that, doesn't guarantee that you have good sound. The next thing that you need to have for your microphone is placement. In fact, we probably should have talked about mic placement first, but I think for this discussion, the way I brought it up makes some sense. But when I think about audio for video, I think about placement first, and then I think about unity gain, because you have to have the mic in the right area. In any event, placement. Sometimes people think, oh man, I got such a great mic. This mic is a cheap mic. But man, this cheap mic, man, it can pick up a pin drop all the way over there. That's crap. You don't know. You don't know what you're talking about. You don't want your microphone to be turned up so loud, the gain, the little knob, not the fader. You don't want that little knob to be turned up so loud that it can pick up a gnat farting on that side of the room. That's a problem, guys. That's a problem, okay? These mics can get turned up loud enough to pick up a gnat from across the room. That's a problem. Okay, you should only ever turn your mic's sensitivity up loud enough to get the source clear and legible, which most of the time for spoken audio means getting closer to the source than it does getting wide room tone. The further away you are, the more reverberations, the more room tone that you're going to hear. Since you're going to hear more of the room, including your speaker won't sound as articulate, which will mean you'll turn the mic gain up, especially if you're not using a mixer or a field recorder, so that you can attenuate the signal properly by mixing the signal with the faders after setting the level correctly with unity gain between them. And that means that in order to hear them, you'll have to turn the mics up, the sensitivity up. But when you turn the sensitivity up, the microphone's noise floor will raise because it gets turned up as well. That's the hiss you hear. That's not noise reduction. That's the hiss you hear. Most consumer microphones have a self-noise around minus 50 decibels, minus 60-ish decibels. That's consumer. That's cheap consumer stuff, wireless mics that you pick up for $30 to $70 to even $100 on Amazon. They sound terrible. That's it. But you didn't know that. So I'm telling you now. You didn't know it because you haven't researched it, because you haven't thought about it, because this is your first time hearing about it probably. Which means when you buy that cheap mic, you thought, I don't know, I bought this wireless mic, it's supposed to be great, this guy recommended it. Nope, you didn't know what you were buying, you bought a piece of crap. That's why in the system, when we tap and hold and go to menu, and I come up here to my menu and I come over here to audio, I want you to see where it says my handle input settings, input from mic level 1 and input for line level 1. Well, I've got 2 mic and 2 line level signals that I can use. In this instance, I'm using the handle. So this menu is specifically talking about the XLR inputs. I've got 2 of them that are back here. These 2. These XLR inputs can accept a condenser mic, which means they provide power, or a dynamic mic, which means they don't need to provide power. If I chose to use a microphone, I would have to set my input on the handle to microphone. And as I look right here, I've got input 1 left, which is the internal microphone on the camcorder. And then I have line level input or mic level input for input 1, the same as for input 2. What this is telling us is that when I choose, I have to choose whether I'm going to use my XLR inputs at mic level or line level, or if I'm not going to use them at all and I'm simply going to use my internal microphone, which you could do. If I'm using the internal microphone, I simply slide my internal mic or mic input 1 selector to internal, and it tells me internal left. Over here, it's the same for the right channel, internal right or input 1 or 2. On the right channel, I can choose to clone input 1 and use input 1 for both XLR inputs. Why would you want to do that? Maybe you want to record the exact same input. Maybe you only have 1 mic that you're using, but you want to record it at 2 separate levels like we talked about a minute ago. Or I could have 2 separate microphones. Here's a way that I usually use it. Normally, I will have an on-person microphone on me, and I will have also a handheld wireless microphone. In that instance, the left channel is recording my audio, and the right channel is recording my handheld audio. So if I'm ever out at an event or someplace and I want to give a microphone to someone so that they can talk and have it picked up on the initial recording, then they have their own mic that I can pass off. It also gives me the ability to mute that signal by turning it down when I want to, and not affect my main recording. So that's why you might use one or the other. In any event, after you choose which input you're using, you then need to choose exactly how you're going to set it up. How much gain does it need? Does it need external power? Remember, the plus 48 volts is for condenser microphones, XLR input microphones. So if you've got an XLR plug and it needs power, then you have to put it on plus 48. At that point in time, it's going to be giving you a plus 48 signal for that input. So now we've learned about how to choose the proper inputs on the audio on the camcorder, or this is the same, honestly, for any kind of device that you'd be using, a soundboard or anything else, except it doesn't have faders. You would still have to choose these inputs. But now let's look at something a little bit more deeper. Different microphones have different self noises. They require more gain. Some require less gain. So if you have a very, very consumer level mic, it will require less gain because it's going to be putting out a stronger signal. Okay, why? There's many reasons, but it has to do with self noise. Consumer microphones don't care about self noise, so they boost the signal more immediately, which gives you more hiss, audible hiss. Well, if you're using a crappy commercial, just a crappy mic, then you might be setting your boost level too low or too high. You won't know until you read the specifications where it tells you in the pamphlet about the mic. It'll tell you average noise level, and then you set that to this. So if it's 50 decibels, 40 decibels, 30 decibels, however much you need to boost, if you don't know, play with it until you find the setting. When you boost it, I want to show you this. Remember, just a minute ago, we were using the internal mics, right? And this is the handle setting. I have to go back out. Let's go to the regular input settings. Okay, we're good. Okay, good. Now, when we come back over here and we see the different settings that we're at, you can actually see that one is boosted a little bit more than the other. You can see that there's a difference in how much gain that we're receiving, about 6 to 8 decibels in the case of this particular microphone. And that difference is all because of choosing that different audio input right here. Now, if we were to take this off, we might even be able to see this a little bit more. All right, handle's off now. Let's see. We should be able to get to the direct input on the audio right now. Mic settings, input settings. Let's go to mic settings. That's what we want. Okay. Here we go. Look, channel 1 level is auto, manual, and it's giving us the different control that we're talking about. There's our 3 decibel change right there. Okay, so if we tap on it, we can give it more boost one way or the other. Look at that. So I got 1 that's set to plus 12. Look at that. Now we're peaking. And all we did was change the settings on the camcorder. Depending on the mic that you're using, getting your device into the proper range requires testing to make sure you're at the proper range. This is a lot, I know. We're going to continue just a little bit because we're almost done. Now that we're here, we've got everything connected once again. I wanted to finish up by talking about these handle settings, and I wanted to talk about the level settings for line. In the line department, we can either set plus 4 decibels or 0 decibels. That's a big jump for a line level signal. If you plug a line level signal into a mic level input, it will be ugly, especially the other way around. You can hear distortion, it'll sound nasty, but believe it or not, if you've got enough gain staging in your device, like we've seen here, you could actually get a pretty decent signal even if you set it wrong by using the decibel input for the mic setting, minus 50, minus 60, minus 40, choosing one, and then turning your meters up or down. I don't suggest it, but the signal, other than being a different strength, a different voltage, is the same kind of signal. It's still carrying the audio. So if you had a pad and some other stuff, you would be able to attenuate the sound properly, and that could work too. Sometimes people end up putting the wrong input in, like connecting the mic to the line or vice versa, and they don't understand why it sounds off, but it still sounds good enough. And the reason is because if your system that you're using, if your camera system, if your board has enough gain tolerance inside of it, then yeah, you can probably finagle them. If you've got 60 decibels to 100 decibels of gain throw either way, you very well could turn it down enough to make it sound right, but it would still sound a little off, specifically in plosives and clipping, a little bit like that. You might hear that. I think we've talked about this enough. When you would want to use plus 4 decibels is pretty easy to determine. The sweet spot of where your audio should sound its best is roughly in the middle range of these potentiometers. These two potentiometers up here, the little knobs that you turn up and down, they're just variable resistors. The system itself, specific to this camcorder and anything with stuff like this, is designed to be most accurately focused in the mid-range of its travel. So you get less resolution at the mid-range, so you're able to adjust 1, 2, 3 decibels between the middle. But as you go more leftwards or more rightwards, as you get to the further extreme, the resolution jumps up like exponentially. It gets that curve, that hockey stick curve, and instead of adjusting 1 or 2, it's now adjusting 3, 4, 10 decibels into where you can completely mute the signal. So you see that if you want your signal to sound the best, you should set your microphone up by testing the different audio gain channels if you don't know, or selecting the one that your microphone literature tells you, right? And then see where your audio gain knobs end up. If they're somewhere in the middle being noon, 10 to 2, you're in a good spot. I'd rather 11 to 1, but 10 to 2 is good. If you have to really pump it up here over to like 3, 4, 5, you're adding 15, 16 decibels maybe. It's also worth noting that the amount of gain you can add through your audio knob on any particular camera or any particular device will be elaborated on in the literature. Some of them can add quite a bit, 50 decibels. Some of them can only add 16 decibels total. It's important to know that range, right? And you'll have to figure that out through whatever you're using. Regardless, you'll get the best audio somewhere in the center. So today we've talked about all those things and kind of put them all together. But if you want to take it a step further, you need to look at your output levels. And if we look over here to the output settings, we can choose what kind of setting we're going to get. This is a mix, channel 1, channel 2, stereo, or a mix. Okay? The stereo is going to give you one channel out of one ear and one channel out of the other ear. The mix is going to give you the same out of both ears. In some instances, you can actually choose what level to send your signal out, meaning you can record at whatever levels you set, but send out plus 10 decibels if you wanted. This camera does not have that directly, but some cameras do. In any event, it's not a science on how to get good audio. Instead, it's a practice. It's a practice on how to set it up. It's a practice on how to listen. And if you're listening and you hear the audio hiss, it's very likely that you've set your gain too high. And if you say, if I turn my audio signal down, my gain down, then I can't hear the source, then that means you need to get your mic closer. Sometimes people will say, well, I can't get my mic any closer. Then I would say, buy a new mic. If you're doing this, you need to have multiples. I've got probably 15 different types of mics to use for the situations that are required. You need more mics than you need cameras because audio is half of video. If your audio is good, but your video is bad, people will watch. If your video is bad and your audio is good, another way to say it, people will listen. But if your video is excellent and your audio is bad, no one will watch unless it's, well, brown chicken, brown cow, right? Some corn, right? Because nobody watches that for the soundtrack. The point that I'm making is spend more time learning audio. It's very important. The final pro tip that I can give you is monitoring with headphones. That is often an area where people really get confused, okay? So if you're monitoring with headphones, then your headphones themselves, right, may be turned up too loud. So they are then amplifying any noise that's in your signal, right? So be careful to use headphones sparingly at louder volumes, right? You want to be able to hear it, but you don't want to amplify sound that's not actually in the signal chain because you're just amplifying it for the headphone. And also, devices like Yellowbox, A10 Mini Pro, I think the A10 Mini Pro, definitely OBSBot Talent, YouTube, they have what's called audio normalization, and they will apply some amount of noise reduction if you tell them to. Well, at least if you tell them to for OBSBot and Talent, OBSBot Talent and Yellowbox, you can turn all of that stuff off. They're great features to have. Now, YouTube and Facebook will automatically add normalization to your audio as well as noise reduction. Okay, so if you're hearing that sent back to you on the stream later and it wasn't collected in your audio in the first place, it's because you didn't set your audio to the best practices, and go check out the best practices for YouTube and Facebook. It'll tell you what audio targets, audio levels to hit. There's been a lot that we've talked about today, and all because of 15 spam comments from some dope. I hope that you have found this helpful. Those of you that are actually subscribed, I will answer your questions when you leave them. If you're not subscribed, I definitely won't answer your question. Yeah, that's all I got to say about that. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all on the flip side. Bye for now.